participants. Thank you.
For your kind words. Now, I would like to welcome our renowned keynote speaker of the session, Dr. Siddharth Jain, sir. Dr. Siddharth Jain, undergraduate trainee, has been predominantly in the area of mechanical engineering. He pursued his master's and doctoral degree focusing on biomass and bioengineering from Indian Institute of Technology, Roorkee, India. His PhD research involved various aspects of biodiesel production from sources which are renewable, non-food crops, and have lower environmental footprints. Apart from the production process, he contributed in the stabilization of biodiesel properties with respect to time. After PhD, he did his two postdoctoral fellowships from National University of Singapore and University of Alberta in the area of biomass and bioenergy. He has published more than 60 papers in international SCI publications and authored many books and book chapters for Springer, Elsevier, CRC, etc. Apart from this, attended around 40 international conferences and published 2 patents. Currently, he is working as Dean Research and Professor in the Department of Mechanical Engineering, College of Engineering, Roorkee, India. During his duration in College of Engineering, Roorkee, he is doing research in the area of low temperature transportification of algal biomass. At present, he is guiding 4 MTech students along with 6 PhD students in the area of biomass and bioenergy. Sir, I welcome you in this FDP, and I request you to kindly make us aware with your thoughts, and it is an honor for me. Sir, so the session is over to you, sir. Dr. Siddharth Jain.
Thank you, Dr. Lamba, for such a kind introduction. Definitely, I would like to thank also to give me such a wonderful opportunity. Now, this time I'm going to present the session. Can you please So, are you able to see my slide? Hello?
Yes, sir. We are able to see your slides.
Yeah, okay. And I'm audible as well. So, a very good morning to all the participants, faculty members, of course, dignitaries. Today, I am giving myself, Dr. Siddharth, giving overview of the future fuel generation technologies, and my emphasis as a fuel. So, in the coming slides, I'm just going to discuss about what is the moving and why we are moving from conventional transportation fuel to, of course, the renewable energy, or we can say the non-conventional transport fuel. And definitely along with this, I'm going to discuss one of my project which I received from TQ3 under the collaborative research scheme. So I'm also going to discuss that part of my project during this presentation. So in the few coming slides, I am going to discuss about the following points, of course, the introduction, gaps, what are the gaps which we identified, objectives, methodology, time schedule of the project, along with, of course, the publication details. So, so I'm just going to discuss about why we need alternate fuel, how the transport industry has been changing, transport fuel has been changing. So you can see in the coming in this slide that the picture is showing that India's share on the crude oil production is about 1% of the total world crude oil production. However, the consumption share is about 3.1%. So the figure is showing that we are consuming 3 times more than what we are producing. And the result of that is that we are importing almost around 80% of the crude oil from overseas. So that is the main emphasis why we are splurging or spending a lot of money in foreign exchange, as already Dr. Pankaj Badan has discussed. So that is the main thing behind why we are moving from conventional transportation fuel to non-conventional transportation fuels, and this is the basis of the need. So for that, we need, of course, the alternate fuel, and definitely a big part, big portion is goes to straight vegetable oil. If we want to produce biodiesel, then definitely straight vegetable oil plays an important role. Now, before going much into the technical portion, I'm just going to discuss, okay, what is fuel? Why we are talking much about the fuel. We need fuel, transportation fuel, conventional and non-conventional. So before going into that, fuel. So fuel is any material that can be made to react with the other substance so that it releases the chemical or the nuclear energy as heat, which can further be used for uh, uh, so basically what's happening, the fuel is combined with the oxygen. Of course, for burning of fuel, for combustion, we need oxygen. So fuel is combined with the oxygen, and in the presence of some initiating heat, it produces combustion process, and result of that is the production of heat as well as exhaust. A part of that heat could further be used for initiating or to continue that combustion process. And the big portion of that heat is being used for producing the work, which could further for producing any kind of energy, either mechanical, electrical, any kind of energy. So now the classification of fuel. So in a major manner, the energy resources are being divided into two major parts. These are the primary energy resources as well as the secondary energy resources. So the primary energy resources are the resources which are naturally available on Earth. These are not man-made. However, the secondary energy resources are synthetic energy resources. These could be derived from primary energy resources like produce of gas or the oil. So these by it themselves on Earth, we have to extract these from the primary energy resources like the coal, producer gas, of course, the combination of monoxide and hydrogen, and the oil is being produced from the crude oil. So the crude oil, that is the primary energy resource. So now the primary energy resource are divided into two parts. One is the non-renewable energy resources and another is the renewable energy resources. So of course we know that the renewable energy resources, these are not replenishable in nature. These are not produced by themselves. Okay? Or they may take much time, millions of years for producing, like the coke, like like the coal, like the petroleum, like the natural gases. However, the renewable energy resources are replenishable in nature. So these are produced by themselves, and these are abundant in on the earth, like the wind, like geothermal, like biomass, like the solar energy. So the of course there are many other resources, renewable energy resources, which are available, but of course, we are just going to discuss about here the biomass. So now, what is biomass? So biomass is an organic matter which is being produced by plants, both terrestrial and aquatic. Terrestrial means these are produced on, these are grown on earth. However, the aquatic plants grown on inside the water. So both are the, of course, the biomass. And in a major manner, if we're talking about biomass, then it consists of three major portions. One is the cellulose and lignin. So based on the amount of cellulose, hemicellulose, and the lignin, one can decide what technology we need to use for converting that biomass into biofuel or the energy. So that portion, that combination it's important to know that, okay, how much cellulose, hemicellulose, and the lignin it has. So we can see that in this figure, of course, the lignin, cellulose, and the hemicellulose. So lignin basically uh, is the is the part that gives the structure to the plant. The outer portion of the plant is also the lignin, which save it from the environment. However, the cellulose and the hemicellulose, these are, of course, the energy part. The hemicellulose basically consists of the sugar, C6 sugar, which in the form of the fructose, sugar part, cellulose, or the fructose. So that is very important for producing the energy. So one should know the combination of these three, so that can decide the conversion technology. So now we have studied, okay, about what is biomass, what is the different component of the biomass. Now it is very important to know the classification of the biomass. So this is the one of the standardized classification of the biomass. It is being divided into three parts. One is the first generation, another is the second generation, and third is the third generation. So first generation. So we can see here from the figure that the first generation of biomass consists of the oil crops. Basically, these are the food crops. These are edible in nature. So what's happening? So when like in the 19th century, basically, you know that the people are producing, of course, the ethanol, methanol from the sugar crops, and these days also, of course, the countries like Brazil, US, and Europe, they have much land, so they are producing the energy, the biofuel from the food crops like the sugar cane, like the wheat grass, so anything, of course. So what they are doing, of course, like it is being divided into three parts: the oil seed crop, second is the grains, of course, like the wheat, third is the sugar crop. So based on that, the technology has been divided. Like in oil seed, we have fats and oils, which could further be converted into biodiesel. So the technology can be used like the transesterification or the hydrotreating. So hydrotreating can convert that fat or oil into renewable diesel. Now, if you're talking about the grains, so much of the portion it has of the starch, and in the sugar crop, it has the sugar. The sugar is being converted into starch either, or they could further be converted into ethanol or butanol using what conventional alcohol fermentation or the enzymatic hydrolysis fermentation or an digestion or some of the modern techniques. So after the first generation, there was a big debate in the countries like India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, because we don't have much land. And if we are producing the biofuel from the food crops, then there will be scarcity of the food in these countries because we have much population and we don't have land and resources. So the debate was food versus fuel. So that's why it was decided that no, we cannot go for this fuel production from the food crops. And after that, the second generation biomass came into existence. And what was that? That was the waste biomass. So that was not the food crops. What was that? That was the agriculture residues. Like everybody during the past few years, we listening about the parali. So that is the agriculture residue. After the biomass or after the grains and the sugar crops is being extracted from the field, so what is left behind? That is the agriculture residue. So that is not of any use. So that can be used for biofuel production. On the other hand, the trees and grasses, which are non-edible in nature, like the jatropha, so that could further be converted into biofuel. So of course, every biomass is having hemicellulose and lignin, we know very well. So that could further be converted into, of course, we can extract the sugar, starch, and then can convert that into, of course, different forms of biofuel like the ethanol, butanol, methanol. Okay. And on the other hand, there are some modern techniques like the pyrolysis gasification. So by using those techniques, one could convert that biomass into hydrocarbon or the natural oil from which desired fuel can be produced. So everybody listen about during the past few years that of course government is giving much attention for converting the waste cooking oil into biofuel. So waste cooking oil, basically that is being converted from cooking oil, definitely. So cooking oil is edible. So while you are using that cooking oil for cooking purpose, that is the first generation. But after that, if we are saying that it is a waste cooking oil, it is not of use of any cooking purpose or any edible purpose, then it is being treated as second generation biofuel. So waste cooking oil is also the second generation biofuel. The last form of the second generation was the algae. So algae, the part of algae is also non-edible. A part is edible, but a part also the non-edible in nature. And all so that was also the part of the second generation. But after the research, it has been found that the cultivation, the productivity, and the strains of the algae is in very large amount. Means algae's productivity is very high as compared to any conventional biomass. On the other hand, the type of algae, the number of species, the number of strains is is very wide. Around 1 lakh species we have of algae. That's why researchers have decided that algae should be given a different generation. So that is the third generation. So now the work is being going on in third generation biofuel. Because during the last few years, we have seen that people are doing work on Jatropha, but they are not very successful, especially the countries like India. So government is giving much attention to Jatropha, but we are not, till now, we are not successful. So why we are not successful, we will discuss that too. So that's why the algae has been given the third generation. So of course, if we see the algae, then it has the fats, oils, of course, the cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin. So that could further be converted into biofuel based on the what is the constituents, what is inside that algae. So we have to see that, and based on that, we can select the conversion technology, and after that, of course, the product will be according to the conversion technology. So now we will be, during this presentation, we are giving much emphasis on the algae. So of course, we know okay what biomass. Now we know that okay what is the classification of the biomass. Now just in 2 or 3 slides, I'm just being briefly discussing okay the classification of the biofuel conversion technologies. So in a very major manner, it is being divided into 4 parts. One is the direct combustion. Second is the thermochemical conversion, which has the gasification and pyrolysis. The third part is the biochemical conversion, which is being divided into 2 parts, like the anaerobic digestion and the fermentation. And the last part is the chemical conversion. So we'll discuss one by one. So direct combustion. You know very well that what is direct combustion. Direct combustion is we are just having the biomass. It is the most conventional and that steam and yeah, chemical conversion. So in for direct question, what's happening? We are so we
So your voice is breaking.
season season. Pick up a
The voice is not clear, sir.
Is it clear now?
Yes, sir. Now it is clear.
Yes, sir. Please continue.
But here, CO plus H2, carbon monoxide. But based on, we get the different type of outputs, right? So that's the thermochemical conversion. Now the biochemical conversion. Of course, we know that what is biochemical. I think in the past we have already been studied about the fermentation and the anaerobic digestion, means biogas, of course. So that is the biochemical conversion in which the biomass is being converted into. If we are talking about the anaerobic digestion, means it is the a digestion without oxygen, anaerobic. So what's happening? The biomass has been converted into methane. Methane is the major and the most important gas in the anaerobic digestion, which has the calorific value, which is of use. So that is the part of the biogas. So now the second part was the fermentation. So what's happening with the help of yeasts and bacteria, we are converting biomass into ethanol. So of course, in the anaerobic digestion, we anaerobes, archaeas, and any into either biogas or the methanol or ethanol. So that is the bio conversion on which we are going to concentrate during this presentation. So chemical conversion. So what's happening in chemical conversion? Basically, the oil or the fat, of course, is being combined with the any kind of alcohol. It can be methanol, it can be ethanol, it can be butanol, it can be propanol. So it is being combined with the alcohol in the presence of some catalyst and producing the glycerine and the monoalkyl ester. The monoalkyl ester is the biodiesel basically. So this is the process by which we can convert any fat or oil in biodiesel. So that is called the chemical conversion. So we will discuss that into detail that okay, what we are doing and how we are doing. So now after this chemical conversion technologies, I am just going to concentrate on the algal fuel again. So what is of course the algal fuel? So everybody I think has the common background that okay, algae belongs to a large group of simple photosynthetic organisms. It's a plant simply. It's nothing. It's a plant. So it's simply a photosynthetic organism. It is divided into two subcategories like the microalgae and the macroalgae. So based on the cell size, micro size and the macro size, which is visible. Um, they can be found in the variety of aquatic habitats. Of course, everybody know that. Of course, these are we need water, we need the moisture, we need the aquatic conditions for the growth of the algae. So it can be grow into fresh water, brackish water, marine waters, hypersaline aquatic environment. So what it need? It need the nutrients basically. So where it can get the nutrient, it can be grown, and we have huge varieties of algae. So based on the type of water and the environment, different kind of algae can be grown. So now, of course, you can see this reaction, which is the common photosynthetic reaction which every plant do. So algae also do the same thing. So what they are doing, they are just fixing the atmospheric carbon dioxide in the presence of sunlight and chlorophyll and producing the sugar. So that sugar is basically the important part and producing the oxygen as well. So this sugar formed by the photosynthesis is converted into all type of cellular components like the lipids, carbohydrates, and the protein. So what are those lipids, carbohydrates, and proteins? So we know that a hemicellulose portion is containing the sugar part, and that sugar is being converted into lipids, carbohydrates, and the protein. So lipid part is the fat part, the greasy part, from which we can produce any kind of energy, of course, like the biodiesel. Carbohydrate is the energy portion. Of course, everything knows. Carbohydrate is the energy portion, and protein is used for the cell growth. Okay, so if we would be able to remove or to extract the lipid, carbohydrates, and protein separately, then one can go for different applications. Like the protein part can be used for the edible protein part can be used for edible purpose. So what in my group, so what they are doing, they are extracting the protein, and that would be further converting into the edible portion, the protein powder, or basically. So the fuel extraction, then lipid portion is very important. So during my work, we basically concentrate on the lipids. So we convert that lipids. So lipid has been converted into biofuels. So are you able to see?
It is audible and visible also.
Okay. So now you can see this plant, the algae cultivation plant, which is in the southern part of India. They are producing the algae. You can see these kind of big plants can be used for the growth of the algae for mass production. In this figure, of course, so you can see the uppermost left hand side figure where we have the two round bottom flasks, which is showing the one color, so very dark color. So it is showing that the lighter part is showing that what it needed 7 to 10 days for the you can extract the whole algae, and the same water, the same solution can be used for the growth of the second batch. So that is the process. So now, of course, based on this, why we are so much concentrating on algae. So based on the advantages which algae has. So algae fuel or the algae biofuel or the algae oil is an alternative to liquid fossil fuel, as we have already reached to that conclusion till now. Algae fuel are an alternative to food crops used for biofuel production. Of course, now we don't need to use the food crops. So that is, of course, very important. And also, it doesn't need much amount of land because the productivity is very good. So we will discuss that too. Another great benefit of the algae is that it fixes the atmospheric carbon dioxide and making it completely carbon neutral fuel. So that is also very important. And it has over 1 lakh different strains of algae. Some grows better in different climatic conditions. So based on the climatic condition, different region can grow the different type of algae. Like in Uttarakhand, depending upon the temperature and the humidity condition, the hydrodictyon, the chlorella vulgaris, and Spirogyra, these three algae are very good for the growth actually. So we have also used these algae for our work. Now, what we need actually, if we want to convert algae into fuel, of course, that algae needed the sunlight, the carbon dioxide of the atmosphere, the water, and the nutrients. That nutrients are very important part. So, of course, we have also tried that. We have also seen that the wastewater actually it has the much of the nutrients, which is of course waste for us. So what we can do, we can just grow the algae in these wastewater. We can get the, of course, nutrients free of cost for the growth of the algae. And of course, carbon dioxide from the environment is free, sunlight is free, and water is also in India right now is has no cost, of course. So that could be used. These four items can be used for the growth of the microalgae biomass, which could further be converted based on the constituents inside the biomass could be further converted into biodiesel, methanol, ethanol, pressure top fuel, or the hydrogen. Uh, Figure showing the companies, the major companies all around the world which are doing work on the algae. So in India, we can see the Reliance Industries is doing work on the algae. And in US, of course, many big giant players are doing work on algae. So you can see the productivity. So in 1 hectare land, in 1 year, we can get 290 metric ton of algae. If that could further be converted into bio
Twice.
So your voice is not audible.
is having the higher viscosity. So if we use these kind of oil, in our engine, then definitely it may create the problems because we cannot use the high viscosity oil in the engine. So due to that reason, we have to modify that we have to modify that oil. So there are four common methods for modifying the oil. So what are those? Those are the blending, microamplification, cracking, and transesterification. So blending is what? We just can blend any kind of conventional oil into diesel and then can use into engine. But again, as the oil is having high viscosity, that's why the whole combination, the whole blend is having the viscosity which is higher, which is very high, and that can create the problem in the engine filter during combustion. So that is the thing. Microemulsification is basically the blending of the oil in any kind of alcohol. So, but as we know that both the oil and the alcohol, these are not easily mixable. So that create problem while you are using that into engine. The third method is the cracking. So what is cracking? So in cracking, basically what's happening? Cracking is nothing. It is the combustion in the absence of oxygen of that oil. So that could be further converted into some, some low viscosity fuel. But the process needs high temperature and pressure. So that is also of concern that we don't want to use the high temperature. We don't want to use the much energy. Otherwise, from where we will get that energy? So what for that energy, of course, we need to burn fuel. So ultimately, our purpose will not solve. So the fourth method is the transesterification. So what is transesterification? So we will study that, and of course, that could be converting the oil into biodiesel. So by this method, we get the biodiesel. So now, of course, in the algae portion, if you are talking about, so from algae, if we want to produce the biodiesel from algae, then what we need to collect the algae from that of course, the plant. Then we need to remove the moisture from that algae. Then we extract the oil from that algae. And then once we get the oil, we can just transterify that oil. And after transterify, we can get the biodiesel after the purification. So that is the whole process. So we'll discuss that process, of course. So oil extraction. So if you're talking about oil extraction, then there are 5 different common methods which used for the oil extraction. What are those? So these are the solvent extraction, supercritical fluid extraction, heat at oil extraction, mechanical extraction, and biological. So you can see the figure. This figure is showing the mechanical extraction. So this is nothing. It is just like you just extracting the juice from the fruit. So you can get the you can squeeze the biomass in the mechanical press and can get the oil from any biomass. But that is not very effective in case of the algae. So the most effective method for extracting the oil from algae is the solvent extraction, which we also used in the lab. So now once we'll get the oil, we just convert that into biodiesel. So what is biodiesel and what is transesterification? So the biodiesel is defined as the vegetable oil animal fat based fuel consisting of long chain fatty acids. So what is that? So what is that actually? So in transesterification, basically you can see the reaction. Triglyceride means oil. Oil is having the triglycerides, which is having high viscosity. So ultimate aim is to lower down the viscosity of that triglyceride. So what we are doing, transesterification is the reaction of the triglyceride or the oil with any kind of alcohol in the presence of under certain temperature to produce the mixture of fatty acid esters as well as glycerine. So the fatty acid ester, that is the biodiesel basically, and glycerine is the byproduct in this reaction, but it has also the value in the cosmetic industry, in the food industry. So what's happening in transesterification? We are basically combining the oil with the alcohol under certain temperature in the presence of catalyst, either base or acid, and producing the biodiesel and glycerine. So that is the transesterification, and the mixture of fatty esters is the biodiesel. So the transesterification reaction, we have the 4 major process parameters. Of course, now we know that, okay, what is transesterification? So it has the 4 process parameters. What are those? So those are the reaction temperature, catalyst concentration, methanol amount, and reaction time. So the temperature of catalyst, either that is very important. Methanol amount, it may be methanol, maybe ethanol, butanol, propanol, and the reaction time. So these are the 4 major parameters on which, and this is the reactor, our biodiesel reactor, which we have designed in our laboratory. This is one of the, actually we use many type of. So now, of course, the challenges. What are the challenges in the current technology? So of course, this is not new. Of course, everybody is doing producing the biodiesel using the transesterification of any kind of oil. So what are the challenges? So challenges are the lesser biodiesel yield, of course, then the wastage of the oil, then of course, what are those things? Basically, if you are producing the oil from seed and then converting that oil into biodiesel, then there may be some wastage of oil during these different operations, because you are extracting it different in a separate flask, separate machine, and then converting that into biodiesel in a separate reactor. So there may be chances of wastage of oil, and the processing cost would be very high, of course. And the most important parameter is the biodiesel may degrade due to exposure of the oil into atmospheric air. Means what? If you are extracting the oil and just placing it anywhere before converting that into biodiesel, what happens? The double bonds in the any kind of oil, the unsaturated fatty acid in any kind of oil, they may get oxidized and can produce the higher viscosity compounds in the oil. And it is very difficult then to use that oil for production of biodiesel or to use into any kind of engine. So that is the main and the most important thing due to which reason the Jatropha biodiesel, the Jatropha oil is not so popular, is not so successful in India, because the unsaturated fatty acids are very high and they may get deteriorate during the exposure to the environment, and it is not it is not possible to create the complete vacuum conditions all over time. So what's happening? What is that is called a stability actually. The biodiesel is not stable because it is getting oxidized. So what is that means? So biodiesel is having the saturated and the unsaturated fatty acids, of course. So the unsaturated fatty acids basically they go for formation of the oxidation products after the oxidation reaction. The oxidation products, it may be aldehyde, alcohol, shorter chain carboxylic acids, insoluble gums, and sediments. So this is the basic reason it creates the problem in the engine during the combustion, in the fuel filter plugging, injection fouling, deposit formation. So these are different kind of problems due to the exposure of oil or biodiesel in air. So due to this reason, there are methods to increase the stability. What are those? So those are, of course, we can have some kind of antioxidants. We can use those antioxidants in the biodiesel or oil so that the oxidation reaction can be slowed down. It cannot completely can be stopped, but it can be slowed down. Or what second methodology is what? We can just blend the biodiesel with the high stabilized liquid. We can do that too also. So antioxidants, of course, there are two type of different antioxidants, natural and the synthetic antioxidants. So we are not going much into this. A lot of work has already been done in natural and synthetic antioxidants. But the blending of that low stability biodiesel with the higher stability biodiesel has not been done. So we have done a lot of literature review. We found that, okay, no report has been found nationally or internationally on the blending or mixing of the Jatropha and the algae. Is what? Now Jatropha is having high oxidation, means it has high amount of unsaturated fatty acid, and algae is having low unsaturated fatty acid. So algae oil stability is very good and Jatropha stability is very poor. So what we did, we saw in the literature that it is not been mixed by any researcher. So we tried that, okay, why do we mix these two oils in biodiesel? So what we did, we just add the Jatropha oil and the algae oil in decided ratio. And then we found that, okay, now we got a new kind of oil, which stability is very good, or we can say it is better than the Jatropha oil. And after that, we converted that into biodiesel. So what was the idea? Means if you are expecting oil, then you have to place anywhere. So don't place it anywhere in pure position. You have to mix together, means you can mix the Jatropha oil and algae oil and then can place anywhere before converting that into biodiesel. And then after that, you can convert that into biodiesel. So ultimately, you can get a biodiesel whose stability is also very good because it is having the part of algae as well as Jatropha. So we, of course, a model was developed to correlate the biodiesel yield with the process parameters. What were those? The methanol amount, the catalyst concentration, and the reaction time. And during this, of course, you can see that we have not taken the temperature. So temperature, basically, we are doing work on the low temperature. So 50 degrees centigrade, which could easily can get from the solar energy. So we optimize the process parameters. So we found that, okay, algae yield achieved what? The 81.98%. Means if you are having the 1 liter of oil, then you can get the 198 milliliter of biodiesel. So it is, again, it is not very good amount, because the ideal condition is that if you can get the maximum, means like 1 liter oil can produce the 1 liter biodiesel. That is the ideal condition. But again, in this condition also, we found that during the reaction, what's happening, we are having the oil, of course, and during the transesterification, oil is being, all the time, oil will be in contact with oxygen. So it may get deteriorate during the transesterification reaction as well. So, of course, we have minimized the oxidation reaction by mixing these two oils. But again, it is not minimized to minimum extent. So the idea was that why don't we mix the algae and the jatropha instead of oils? We can just mix these seeds powders together and converting that powder directly into biodiesel instead of having the intermediate step like converting seeds into oil and then oil into biodiesel in different reactors. What we are doing now, converting that powdered form into biodiesel directly in one reactor only, so that the intermediate step is being removed, and it is basically removing the uh, uh, process of oxidation as well. We have discussed about the oxidation, of course. The second thing is the free fatty acids. So we will discuss that also. So based on that, what we decided, of course, the objectives of that study based on under the collaborative research scheme. So based on that idea, we decided to the following objectives. So what were those? Of course, to select the most favorable algae for biodiesel production in Uttarakhand. Of course, as we are in Uttarakhand, so we are doing work for the Uttarakhand, and that's why just been converting the most favorable, selecting the most favorable algae, and to create the process for low temperature in situ transesterification. We will discuss what is in situ. So now, and to optimize the process parameters, then to develop the high quality renewable fuel, and then performance of the engine using that renewable fuel. So based on that, we came to the following methodology. So of course, after receiving the process is being divided into two phases. The whole project was phase 1 and phase 2, both are of 6 months. So in phase 1, what we did, we just collected the feedstock and the chemicals. Then we created our experimental setup. Then of course we did the experiments. Then after that we optimized the process parameters, and after that we just measured the biodiesel properties. And after that, having the biodiesel properties, the second phase was mostly concentrated on the experiments on the prepared biodiesel on the engine, and to get the engine performance analysis. So that was the whole project. So you can see the pictorial presentation in which we took the algal biomass, we mixed that algal biomass with the jatropha biomass, and then this powdered form is being converted directly into biodiesel. So that direct conversion is called the in situ. So we did the in situ transesterification of that biomass and converted that into biodiesel. That biodiesel is being used. Now just want to, of course, discuss that what is in situ transesterification. So in situ is nothing, it is the direct. So direct or the in situ transesterification is a process that blends microalgae biomass plus jatropha powder with an alcohol in the reactor with a proper catalyst that eliminates certain stages like extraction of biofuel production. So what's happening in a simple language, if we see that in situ, what we are doing, we are just having the microalgae and the jatropha biomass in powdered form. We are mixing it in a pre-decided ratio, and then we are converting that biomass into biodiesel directly without having the oil. Okay, in single reactor. So that is the in situ. So oxidation part of the reaction is being removed now. So what's happening? So we have collected the feedstock from the Lal Dam. It is a site in the Uttarakhand. Of course, it is near to Bijnor. So that is the Lal Dam. So you can see that we collected from here the Spirogyra algae. Our team of students have collected this. You can see, and then this algae is being dried and then powdered, and you can see the figure. So the free fatty acids of this biomass is having 0.5%. However, saturated and unsaturated fatty acids are 72.1 and 27.9%. we mixed that with the jatropha seed powder, and whose free fatty acids are 22%, saturated is 26%, unsaturated is 73%. So you can see the unsaturated part of the jatropha is very high. So that's why it is being mixed with the saturated portion of the algae, so that it is having the different kind of mixture, and it is having, of course, the saturated 70.3%. So now the oxidation problem is removed mostly. So it is having, of course, 39.7% of unsaturated fatty acid, which is much lower than the unsaturated portion of the jatropha. So that is the powdered form, and this powdered form is being used in this reactor. And then you can see the schematic as well as the photograph of the reactor. It is the round bottom flask having the 4 necks. So we just mix that mixture with the alcohol, and which is methanol, and of course the catalyst, and the temperature of the reaction was 50 degrees centigrade. Then we just mixed it with we just optimized these process parameters. So we used a range of the parameters. So we discuss that range. So after the reaction, we just put this whole mixture in this conical. You can see the separating funnel. In this separating funnel, the down portion is the glycerine, and the upper portion is the methyl ester, which is the biodiesel basically, which is the just a minute. Yeah. So this is, of course, the our separating funnel by which we can just separate the biodiesel, which is the upper portion. Then after having the biodiesel, we can just can separate the unreacted methanol. Of course, during the reaction, a part of the methanol is being unreacted. So this part is been the unreacted portion of the methanol can be removed by the of course the by boiling that portion in the reaction, and then after that we can wash the already prepared biodiesel in water, so that the catalyst can be mixable in the water, and we can get the catalyst free biodiesel. So this is the engine which we used in our experiments, schematic as well as photograph. This is the 2 kilowatt engine. Having we use the MRU exhaust gas analyzer for getting the gases. So these are basically the parameters with their range in the in situ transesterification. So catalyst concentration is 0 to 5% we took, and the methanol to dry algae ratio is of course 8 to 20. Reaction time is 60 to 180, and the temperature of the reaction is of course 50 degrees centigrade. So we designed our experiments using the response surface methodology. So these are the 15 experiments we did, and the last column of the experiment, this table is showing that during this combination how much yield we are getting. So 87.56, 40.2%. So these are the yield basically, and then after that we optimize using the same. So this is the GC analysis we use for the measuring of the biodiesel yield in the IIT Roorkee. So after that, we found the relationship between the yield as a function of course, all the 3 parameters which we took. So this is the reaction, and based on that reaction, we optimized also these reaction parameters. So this is showing that this figure is showing the relationship between the actual and the predicted values of the biodiesel yield using this relationship. So this is, of course, this table is showing the analysis of variance, which showing that the model is significant. However, lack of it means the error part is insignificant, along with good values of adjusted and predicted R square, which is the regression coefficient. So now this is showing the perturbation curve. So perturbation curve is showing that, of course, as the of course the you can see that how the reaction parameters are having the effect on the biodiesel yield. So you can see that as the methanol amount is being increasing, the biodiesel yield is getting decreased first and increasing. On the other hand, the catalyst is having a positive effect during the first half. Means if you are increasing the catalyst, then the biodiesel yield is been increasing. After that, reaching to the maximum value, it is been decreasing. This is showing that the transesterification reaction is basically the reversible reaction. And after a certain time, if you are getting increasing the amount of catalyst, it get reversed in direction. So the same thing could be seen in the response surfaces. So these are the response surfaces showing the relationship between the yield and the catalyst and the methanol amount, as well as yield with the catalyst and the time. So based on that, we optimize using the design of experiment, and it is found that the maximum yield is 88.5%. However, when we are using the oil, it was 81%. And now if we are using the this in situ transesterification powder form, then we are getting 88.5% of the biodiesel yield. However, the optimized conditions of the parameter are 179 minutes reaction time, methanol amount is around 20%, and catalyst amount is around 3.5%. So based on that, we also of course optimize. We also measured the biodiesel properties like the flash point, viscosity, water and sediment points, and the acid value, which are in limit according to the IS 15607. So after that, we use that biodiesel in the IC on IC engine in B5, B10, B20, and B100 plants. So B5 is 5% biodiesel and 95% conventional diesel. We measured the brake specific fuel consumption and brake thermal efficiency. So this figure is the graph of the of course on axis we have the load. It is a 2 kilowatt engine, that's why the maximum load is 2 kilowatt, and the y-axis is the brake specific fuel consumption in gram per kilowatt of hour. So you can see that of course the brake specific fuel consumption of diesel of course is minimum. However, the amount of biodiesel is being increasing in the plant, so the brake specific fuel consumption is getting decreased. It's getting increased. So because of the lower calorific value of the biodiesel. So showing that of course up to B20 plant we can use that biodiesel in our existing engines, and based on that we have also published one patent on that dry mixture. Basically, we have we have done the in situ transesterification of the mixture of algae and the jatropha in a pre-decided manner in ratio, so that the yield is very good. It is having the it requires the less temperature of the reaction as well as less time of the reaction. So based on that, we have published one patent on the biodiesel composition and a method of preparation thereof in the Indian Patent Journal in December 2019. So that is all about this project. Thank you very much for giving such a wonderful opportunity for